Dear students, good afternoon. I am Dr. Shanker Singh, and today we will discuss one of the commonest encountered deficiency disease in animals, that is thiamine deficiency. There are various synonyms for this disease, that is it is also called as Polioencephalomalacia, Hypothiaminosis, Cerebrocortocal necrosis, or some people, or you can say it is also called as Chastek paralysis, especially in the wild animals for the foxes. As the name, it is very clear that the deficiency of thiamine in tissue is associated with the clinical disorder, or that is the signs of neurological disease observed in animals. The Polioencephalomalacia term literally means that softening of gray matter, and it is a key neurological disease, and this disease is going to affect many species of ruminants as well as non-ruminants. Necrosis of cortical, or you can say necrosis of cerebral cortex, is the paramount lesion of this deficiency disease, and all age groups of the animals are or may be affected, but the most susceptible age group are the young ones of the animal. There are several risk factors for this occurrence of hypothiaminosis or polioencephalomalacia. The most important risk factor for occurrence of this polioencephalomalacia in animals are sulfur toxicity, lead toxicity, water deprived sodium toxicity. All these risk factors are going to induce same brain lesions, and all of them are frequently responding to the thiamine deficiency. So, it is considered this risk factor are somewhat correlated with occurrence of this polioencephalomalacia in animals. This disease is documented in cattle, sheep, horses, dogs, goats, camels and cats. If you will talk about the etiology, the primary deficiency of thiamine in diet can be one of the cause, but the secondary deficiency, that is destruction of this vitamin or thiamine in rumen, is the most common cause for the occurrence of this polioencephalomalacia in ruminants. This thiamine destruction in rumen is usually caused by an enzyme, that is thiaminase, and you people are knowing, once the rumen is functional or appetite of animal is normal, they are on normal diet, at that time the ruminal microbes synthesize extensively this thiamine. So, the dietary requirement of thiamine in normal animals or normal ruminants, you can say, is not much, because this is mainly synthesized by the ruminal microflora. But certain conditions like ruminal fermentive disorders, as you can say subacute ruminal acidosis or acute ruminal acidosis, can predispose for the occurrence of this disease. Similarly, ruminal microflora or ruminal microbial thiaminase production, if it will be enhanced, then the chance of occurrence of this disease may be higher in ruminants. There are two conditions where the ruminal thiaminase production may be enhanced. It is mainly associated with overproliferation of Bacillus thiaminolyticus bacteria or Clostridium aspergens bacteria, which are going to produce thiaminase 1. Similarly, if animal is on high grain diet, at that time the proliferation of Bacillus aneurolaticus will be more, and this bacteria is going to produce thiaminase 2, and this thiaminase 2 and thiaminase 1 both are associated with lysis of this or destruction of thiamine in the rumen. So, if animal is on high grain or low pH, the ruminal pH is lower side, as we seen in subacute ruminal acidosis, then the occurrence of disease is very high in ruminants. Another factors like intake of inactive thiaminase or thiamine analog, you can say, as we have seen, that is used for the therapy of this coccidia, some coccidiostates like amprolium, they are also going to produce a clinical disease of thiamine deficiency, or you can say thiamine deficiency like disorder. But nowadays, one of the most important factor which has been presumed behind this disease is the consumption of excessive sulfur. It can be either in feedstuff or in water. If the sulfur content of feedstuff and water is high, at that time there may be chances of occurrence of this disease will be high. If we will talk about ruminal acidosis, how it is going to affect or how it is going to promote the disease, there are so many mechanisms by which the promotion or occurrence of thiamine deficiency in ruminants is promoted by this ruminal acidosis. It can be due to inadequate synthesis of ruminants or ruminal thiamine. As you know, when the pH will be low, the thiamine synthesis will be reduced. Similarly, other mechanism behind that is the production of thiaminase, or in the production of thiaminase is more in acidic fluid, as we have discussed. The bacteria which are associated with production of thiaminase, their proliferation will be enhanced if the pH of rumen will be towards the acidic side. Simultaneously, the absorption of thiamine is also impaired in acidic ruminal pH. At the same time, you know, once there is high production of lactate or lactic acid, the metabolic demand for thiamine will be high for utilization or conversion or the metabolism of the lactate. So, these are the possible reasons by which the ruminants become more prone for the occurrence of polioencephalomalacia if they are on high grain diet or they are having subacute or acute ruminal acidosis. As we have discussed, the recent advancement in the pathological or etiological cause is the sulfur toxicity, and it becomes increasingly acceptable as a major cause of polioencephalomalacia in the ruminants. The role of sulfur in polioencephalomalacia remains unclear, but it has been proposed that the inhalation and absorption of eructed hydrogen sulfide gas from rumen can be the possible reason for occurrence of polioencephalomalacia in ruminants. Before going much detail, we should know how this excess of sulfur is going to hamper or going to produce the clinical disease in ruminants. If excess of sulfur is ingested, there will be increased production of hydrogen sulfide, and that will be eructed. Because this sulfur, ingested sulfur, is reduced by the ruminal microbes, and some of this hydrogen sulfide produced from fluid phase will be released into the Raman gas cap, and the production or reduction of sulfur into hydrogen sulfide is enhanced by the formation of, or you can say fermentation, which leads to decrease in the pH. It means that the production of hydrogen sulfide, if excess amount of sulfur is provided to the ruminants, is dependent upon the pH of the rumen. Once the ruminal pH is towards the lower side or towards the acidic side, at that time production of hydrogen sulfide will be high, and this produced hydrogen sulfide will be released into the rumen gas cap and it will be eructed. And you should know that the ruminants inhale 70 to 80% of the eructed gas, and most of the H2S gas may be absorbed in the pulmonary blood system after inhalation of that gas. And you know that some inhaled hydrogen sulfide may reach to the brain without undergoing hepatic detoxification. So, this hydrogen sulfide, if it will reach to the brain, it will directly cause toxic damage to the brain. Now, how this sulfide is going to damage the brain, it should be known, or we should discuss this in detail. This sulfide in brain tissue is converted to sulfate, or you can say it is associated with mitochondrial sulfide oxidation process, and it links to the respiratory electron transport chain at the level of cytochrome C. Mitochondrial sulfide oxidation is ultimately inhibited by high sulfide concentration, and this sulfide concentration, if exceeds certain levels, last enzyme in the respiratory electron transport chain of mitochondria, that is cytochrome C oxidase, will be inhibited. Once this cytochrome C is inhibited, the production of ATP through oxidative phosphorylation will be blocked, and after blocking of this oxidative phosphorylation or unavailability of the ATP, there will be necrotic lesion in the cerebral cortex. So, it is also called as cerebral cortical necrosis, and ultimate the possible reason, or nowadays it has been considered that sulfur toxicity is mostly associated with occurrence of the disease. Another pattern by which this sulfur can induce this disease is the production of sulfites. Sulfite is the toxic intermediate metabolite of sulfur, and this sulfite ion are considered to be strong nucleophiles. It means these sulfite ions, when high amount is available into the tissue, they can directly destroy thiamine. So, these are the two hypotheses on the basis of which we consider that the sulfur may be associated with the occurrence of polioencephalomalacia in ruminants. Now, going to how this pathogenesis or how this disease is going to occur actually. Some other factors are also associated with the occurrence of polioencephalomalacia. As you know, the microbial synthesis of thiamine occurs in alimentary tract of monogastric animals and young calf of or lambs also, but the amount which is synthesized in monogastric animals and young calves and lambs are not adequate. Therefore, they are considered to be at the high risk or at the more risk for occurrence of polioencephalomalacia. Thiamine is relatively unstable and readily destroyed by cooking. So, if you are offering a food which is cooked, at that time the availability of thiamine will in that food will be low. As we have also discussed that amprolium, that is the thiamine analog, can induce polioencephalomalacia. Thiamine antagonist, as we have discussed, certain plants, bacteria and fungi are producing thiamine antagonists that are also associated with occurrence of polioencephalomalacia. If we will talk about bacteria, we have discussed which bacteria are associated. Similarly, feeding or eating of raw fish, especially in wild carnivores, can induce the disease that is called as Chastek paralysis in foxes especially. The plants which are of cruciferous plants like turnip, rape, mustard, oilseed meals, they are having excess of sulfur. So, they can induce polioencephalomalacia in animals. Similarly, byproducts of corn, sugarcane and sugar beet processing are high in sulfur content. So, they are also considered to be the thiamine antagonist, or they are associated with the occurrence of polioencephalomalacia. If you will talk about horses or equines, the plants like bracken fern and horsetails, these plants are having thiaminase 1 and they are also associated with occurrence of polioencephalomalacia. Now, after these factors which are associated with occurrence of polioencephalomalacia, we should know what are different pathophysiology or pathogenesis of the disease. As you know that this thiamine plays a central role in energy yielding metabolism, or you can say the metabolism of carbohydrate, and the principal function of, you can say, this thiamine in all cells are either coenzyme of carboxylase or TPP, thiamine pyrophosphate. You know that there are so many functions of this thiamine. If you list it, you can say that thiamine is associated with coenzyme for all enzymatic carboxylation of alpha keto acids. It is also associated with oxidative decarboxylation of pyruvate to acetate, and that is a source of coenzyme A, and its entry into the TCA is mediated through this process. If you will remember the biochemistry, how this thiamine is associated with TCA cycle, you will see that it is associated with oxidative decarboxylation of pyruvate to acetate. Similarly, this thiamine is associated with pyruvate dehydrogenase, which is an enzyme associated with carbohydrate metabolism. It is also associated with alpha ketoglutarate dehydrogenase, which is required for TCA cycle. It is also associated with branch chain keto acid dehydrogenase, which are involved in metabolism of leucine, isoleucine and valine. It is also associated as a coenzyme for transketolase of pentose phosphate pathway, that is the PPP pathway of energy production, you can say. The specific role of this thiamine is also there in neurophysiology. It is required for synthesis of acetylcholine. It is also associated with or required for passive transport of sodium ion in the excitable membrane of the nerves. Reduction in the transketolase activity in PPP, or you can say pentose phosphate pathway, is observed if there is decrease in level of thiamine. This reduced level of thiamine can decrease or reduce the production of fatty acid and metabolism of energy. So, ultimately you can say that thiamine deficiency will leads to accumulation of endogenous pyruvate, because we have seen the so many function of this thiamine is there. If thiamine is not adequately available, at that time there will be accumulation of endogenous pyruvates and carbohydrate metabolism will be affected. Once the carbohydrate metabolism get affected, at that time the production of ATP will be diminished or hampered. And you know that if ATP is not available, the first change that occurs in the neuronal cells, or you can say neurons, is the intracellular, or you can say edema of the intracellular compartment, specifically in the astrocytes and satellite cells. And this edema of the cells are associated with neuronal degeneration, that is the secondary effect of the edema. And the basic lesions which is observed in polioencephalomalacia are compact necrosis, edema necrosis and edema alone. These are the three basic things which are going to conduct or associated or that are involved in the whole pathogenesis of this polioencephalomalacia. After this, we should know what are different clinical manifestations of the disease. If you will find almost similar pattern is observed in all affected species of animals. The common signs of this polioencephalomalacia are sudden onset of the blindness, animal walk, aimless walking of the animals, you can say, head pressing, ataxia, muscle tremors. You will find it specifically in the head and ear twitching. You will also observe jaw champing with frothy salivation. This is the characteristic of this polioencephalomalacia. Afterward, you will find clonic-tonic convulsions when you will handle or move the animal. At that time, you will find there will be occurrence or precipitation of clonic-tonic convulsion. There may be grinding of teeth and opisthotonous condition will be there. You can also observe tetany of forelimbs. There may be nystagmus, and this nystagmus can be either vertical or horizontal. You can also find dorsal strabismus, and this dorsal strabismus is due to stretching of trochlear nerve. The most important thing, how will you detect the reflexes of eye, particularly Menax or Menace reflex is always absent in acute stage of polioencephalomalacia, but palpebral eye reflex is usually normal. PLR is also normal. If palpebral eye reflex and PLR are normal, but animal is showing that Menax or Menace reflex is absent, you should suspect about the polioencephalomalacia. The calves which are of 6 to 9 months of age may die within 24 to 48 hours, but older cattle may survive for several days. If you will talk about the less severe cases, in this animals are blind, they may press their head against or into the wall or fences. They may remain standing for several hours and few days. Occasionally, you will see that in sheep and goats, there may be unilateral localized signs can be observed, like circling and spasmodic deviation of head can be observed in some cases of sheep and goats. You may also observe, specifically in goats, elevation of head, that is called as stargazing condition. These are the early signs of polioencephalomalacia, particularly in goats. But this stargazing condition can also be observed in other animals. If you will talk about the clinical manifestation in horses, you can find incoordination and falling, bradycardia, swaying from side to side. The crossing of forelegs and wide action of the hind legs are characteristic of polioencephalomalacia in equines. You can also observe crunching and arcing of back in equines. So, these are the characteristic clinical manifestation in different species of the animal. Now, how will you diagnose, or what are the clinical pathology of this disease? The most important diagnosis is the clinical response to thiamine treatment. This is the most practical method of diagnosis of polioencephalomalacia. If animal is responding to thiamine treatment, it is the best practical diagnostic method. You can also estimate for level of thiamine concentration in blood, but its interpretation is very difficult. If you will talk about it, if it is due to the thiamine analogues toxicity, at that time you will find the level of thiamine in blood will be normal, but still animal will be showing the clinical manifestation of hypothiaminosis. So, if you are going to estimate this thiamine level in blood, you should know the normal level of thiamine in different animals, particularly in sheep and cattle. The normal blood level or serum level of thiamine is 75 to 185 nanomole per liter. But when the level is below 50 nanomole per liter, it is considered to be deficiency. Similarly, the thiamine level in goats, it is normal range is 72 to 178 nanomole per liter, but deficiency is considered if the level is below 66 nanomole per liter in goats. Another mechanism or biochemical estimations which can help you in diagnosis is the increased blood pyruvate and lactate levels. As we have discussed well that the pyruvates and lactates are metabolized in association or if available thiamine is there. So, if thiamine is not available, then the level of pyruvate and lactates will definitely be elevated in the animals. Similarly, you can also go for detecting thiaminase activity in feces, and if animal is suffering with this thiamine deficiency due to overproduction of this thiaminase enzyme, then you will find an elevated level of thiaminase activity in the feces. The most commonly practiced or attractive method of diagnosis of this thiamine deficiency is the decreased erythrocyte transketolase activity. This is attractive method because the blood collection in the animal is very easy, and once you will find the level of transketolase enzyme is low, it is indicative of there is hypothiaminosis. The normal level of this erythrocyte transketolase activity in sheep are in the range of 40 to 60 IU per ml of RBC. Another method by which you can say that animal is suffering from polioencephalomalacia by estimation of CSF pressure in cisterna magna. You should know in most of the ruminants the normal level of this CSF pressure or normal range for this CSF pressure in ruminants is 12 to 16 cm of H2O. But if animal is suffering from polioencephalomalacia, it will be elevated and it may range from 20 to 35 cm of H2O. Other mechanism, or you can say after necropsy, you can also go for histopathology, and one method that is called as UV illumination method that can be utilized for diagnosis of this polioencephalomalacia. Under the UV illumination, you will find cerebrocortical, or you can say autofluorescent area in the cerebrocortical area of brain, and it is indicative of or occurrence of or presence of polioencephalomalacia in animal. So, these are the valuable diagnostic procedure by which you can come for the confirmation of the disease. Now, coming to therapeutic aspect. If you will talk about therapeutic aspect or treatment of the disease, it is very important to start the therapy as early as possible. If treatment is started in early stage, the chance of recovery in the animal or chance of improvement of the clinical condition is very high. As we know that the disease is due to the thiamine deficiency, so the therapeutic management is solely dependent upon the thiamine supplementation. You can go with thiamine hydrochloride at a dose rate of 10 mg per kg body weight, and first dose should be given slow IV, and it should be followed by similar dose every 3 hours for total of 5 treatments. This is the normal one protocol in which 10 mg of this thiamine hydrochloride is given. First dose is given intravenously, and every 3 hours you have to repeat this same dose intramuscularly for 5 times at least. And in another protocol, you can go with this similar dose, that is 10 mg of thiamine hydrochloride per kg body weight, TID or QID for 3 to 5 days in animal. But in animal, those who are unable to handle or difficult to handle, in that condition you can go with intramuscular first injection also, and you will find a beneficial response within 1 to 6 hours, and complete clinical recovery, if you will follow this protocol, can be there within 24 hours if you have started this therapy in early stage of the disease. How will you see that there is improvement? You will find that eyesight and mental awareness will gradually improve in few days. Animal will begin to eat and drink by the 3rd day after the treatment. Other things which should be considered while management, if you have or you will go in the previously we have discussed about the pathogenesis and risk factor, that should be managed. So, you people are knowing that the ruminal microflora may be producing this thiaminase. So, transfaunation of rumen fluid, or you can say rumen curd transfer from roughage fed cattle can be beneficial in management of the cases. But if the disease or there is diffuse cortical or subcortical necrosis, you will not find improvement in your animal. As we know, the pathogenesis is associated with cerebral edema, So, you have to manage or take care of the edema, and this neuroedema can be managed by so many therapeutic agents, like 20% of mannitol can be given at a dose rate of 0.25 to 1 gram per kg body weight. You can also opt for hypertonic saline solution, that is 7.2 to 7.5% NaCl at a dose rate of 4 to 5 ml per kg body weight. Or you can also go with neurodecompression by use of dexamethasone, and it can be given at a dose rate of 1 mg per kg body weight intravenously or intramuscularly. But dear friends, you should be careful while giving this dexamethasone, especially in sheep and goats. If they are giving a localized form of a disease and clinical presentation is there, they may be suffering from listeriosis, and if animal is suffering from listeriosis, you should never give this dexamethasone. Otherwise, this immunosuppression suppressive effect of this dexamethasone will be promotional for the progress of the disease if animal is suffering with listeriosis and other immunosuppressive disease. So, it is best to go with 20% mannitol, but this mannitol should not be given too fast, otherwise the diuretic, or you can say decompressant effect of this mannitol cannot be achieved. If you want to give this mannitol, as a thumb rule, whatever we have discussed here, the dose, you can use it at a dose rate of 1 to 2 ml per kg body weight in ruminants. It means that if 400 kg cow or cattle is there, you should use 400 ml of mannitol, and it should be given in at least 1.5 to 2 hours. If you will infuse it within 10 minutes or 5 minutes, your desired effect cannot be achieved. So, dear friends, if you are infusing this mannitol, it should take time, it should be given very slow, so that the depression or decompression of brain can be achieved by using this mannitol. Another most important thing, if you are finding that there is convulsion or tonoclonic convulsion is there, you should give symptomatic therapy for convulsion, which is very necessary, otherwise your animal will die during the episode of convulsion. So, anti-epileptic drugs or anticonvulsive drugs are necessary if animal is showing signs of convulsion. Oral thiamine hydrochloride can also be supplemented and add to the injectable therapy, and you can give 1 gram for lambs and 5 gram for calf daily for 10 days. Similarly, thiamine propyl disulfide can be used as a thiaminase activity destroyer, and it can depress thiaminase activity within 2 hours of oral administration. So, if you are suspecting that it is due to the thiaminase activity, you can go with thiamine propyl disulfide. And the most important, all possible sources of sulfur should be analyzed, and you have to check what are different source of sulfur, is there any? If it is, you have to remove that source from the diet or drinking of the sulfur containing water. Similarly, if you are suspecting it is due to or animal is having ruminal acidosis or subacute ruminal acidosis, you should check or you can say you should reduce the grain diet and enhance the roughage diet in that animal, so that holistic approach can be there for management of this polioencephalomalacia. After managing, you should be very careful about what different diseases can reveal similar clinical manifestation. So, differential diagnosis should always kept in mind, and it should be differentiated from acute lead poisoning, water deprivation or sodium toxicity you can say, histophilus meningoencephalitis, rabies, coccidiosis with neuro or nervous involvement, vitamin A deficiency. If you will talk about sheep and goats, you should always differentiate from this pregnancy toxemia, enterotoxemia and listeriosis. These are commonly diseases which are giving similar clinical manifestation to that of polioencephalomalacia. So, you should be cautious while clinical diagnosis. You should consider these diseases so that you can manage in a better way. If you are suspecting in adult cattle, you should consider about grass tetany, or you can say hypomagnesemia in lactating cows. So, these diseases must be considered while managing a clinical case of polioencephalomalacia, and I think you can go through this virtual class and you must be benefited with this class. Thank you for listening and your patience. Thank you very much.